Live from Liverpool, we need to talk about ghosts with Kevin Eustace.
Yes, it is indeed Kevin Eustace. That's me, and it's Twixmas. If you don't know what Twixmas is, then where have you been? Have you been living in a cave? It's when, of course, you get all of your English chocolate confectionery called Twixes, and you line them up in a row. No, it's not. It's the bit in between Christmas and New Year, of course. Did you have a nice Christmas? I hope your bells were well and truly jingled. And other metaphors. Yeah, I had a great one, thank you very much for asking, because I know you all asked. What did I get? Well, I'm currently donning a t-shirt right now, which says, my normal is paranormal. Oh, no, it doesn't. I've got that wrong. How bad of me. It says, paranormal is my normal. Yes, and it's black with white writing, because I'm a goth now these days, it appears. I hope that Santa came, or Father Christmas, depending on what name you want to give him. I call him Trevor. Trevor arrived and he gave me lots of gifts. And Becca got some lovely gifts too, as did the neighbour's cat. And I hope that you all got at least something in your stocking, even if it was just a healthy foot. Hopefully not a severed foot. Anyway, moving swiftly on. It is the time of the week where we do like to talk about ghosts. Today's show is a bit of a reversion back to some normality because we've obviously been trialling doing these calls. We are going to have a call on today. We're going to have the lovely Nell on, who called us to... who called us? What am I on about? It's a Zoom meeting. We all know it's a Zoom meeting. Read between the lines, Kev. Yes, so we called Nell and we had a lovely conversation about ghosts that she's encountered. So that'll be in the latter half of the show. In the first half, we're going to revert to type, or to form, if you will, and we're going to read out some stories which have been on the back burner whilst we try to get to grips with recording calls, which I think is going pretty well. We're getting a lot of feedback of positive. We've had a few negative ones, if I'm being truthful, but we try and stay positive. Plus, I kind of get the feeling that if you're the sort of person that goes around leaving negative reviews on a show that you're listening to for free, you're also the sort of person that tunes in to see if verbatim your message is being read out. So guess what, guys? It ain't getting read out. Sorry about that. But thank you for all the positive reviews and the nice things and constructive criticism, which we can do things about. They're all wonderful. And I hope that you're enjoying the new formats, how they go, because I enjoy them. You know, I think we all enjoy the longer shows, don't we? Let's be honest. I know I do. I know if I'm doing something in the background, or if I want something on in the background when I'm doing a task or a chore, then I prefer them to be between 30 minutes and an hour. If they're an hour and a half, brilliant if I'm interested, or if it's a series of little stories that I can just stop and start. That's what I like. So, two very important messages, both Christmas related. Obviously, as I'm sure you'll all understand, because you're doing it too, Christmas this time of year, it's exceptionally busy for everyone. I never want that to be a cause that you don't get an episode ever. So obviously we're doing a good episode. This episode in particular, I want to be a belting episode. Yes, a belter of an episode. But also it means I'm kind of recording parts at different parts of the week when we get a free chance, because I am back in work. We're very running around. Becca's doing a lot of charity stuff. Sounds big-headed, doesn't it? We're doing a lot of work with charity, mate. We don't like to speak about it much. But she is, it's just the truth. So we're grabbing minutes when we can, just like all of yous are, I'm sure. So in reference to that, I need to make two announcements. Number one, I can see that some people have bought copies of the book over the Christmas period. Thank you ever so much for that. We've had to therefore put an author copy order in with Amazon, so there'll be a bit of a delay in them getting to us. We've been informed, just to make you aware of that. So you will get your books, but we need to get the books before you can get your books, if you know what I mean. And secondly, anyone who's given any patronage since approximately the 20th, then I will be doing a big singy song for you. It just won't be today. No, it will be next week in our very first show of 2021. Yes, it will. And in all truth, I don't think I've got that many notifications, so it may just be one or two people. And lucky yous, it'll be like a Now That's What I Call a Patreon song, album 1, you lucky baggers. But if you would like to sign up to Patreon, go over to patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts. Go and join the gang over there. It's a lovely little community, all very nice, nicey. And there's over 100 plus shows over there and videos. And I've done a guided tour of Liverpool, yes, both from a Beatles perspective and, is it Beatles? It's Beatles-y. And a cathedral one. So yeah, there's some good stuff over there. Go and check it out. Patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts. Don't forget, I'm going to give you another email address right here and now. And that is, if you want to come on the show and speak to me, be that via Zoom so we can have an actual conversation, or you want to send in a written story, like we're going to read a lot out in the first half of the show, then you simply need to take down this email address and send me such a request. Send it to contact@talkaboutghosts.com. Okay? Oh, I will say something about reviews and stuff. And this really made me laugh. Someone sent an attempt to be a negative review. Okay, which is fine. You know, each to their own. Really brilliant, whatever. But they said he really likes the sound of his own voice. And I love that. 2 reasons. 1, yeah, I do. And 2, it's a podcast. I mean, have you ever tried listening to generally what's a one-person podcast, one-person hosted podcast with someone who doesn't like to talk? You have, and that podcast is called Silence. Yes, you listen to about 8 hours of it every night when you go to sleep. So that was a very constructive feedback. Listen, mate, you need to stop talking so much. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I like good 10 minutes of silence between my stories. But it did make me chuckle in a sort of childish way. So thank you for that, person. You put a smile on my face that day. Okay, so we are, of course, going to have a Week in Wierd. And this week's Week in Wierd, God, that's a tongue twister. This week's Week in Wierd has come all the way, it's wung, or winged, if you will. Wung isn't even a word, Kevin. Get with it. God, you like the sound of your own voice, man. It's winged its merry way over from Australia, from our good friend Tony, who was on the show a couple of weeks back. And he sent this week's Week in Wierd. And we're going to go right to it now.
Week in Wierd.
Yes, it's time again, once more, for Week in Wierd after a bit of a hiatus. Good word. Thanks, Kevin. Anyway, he does love his own voice. Who knew? So, thank you, Tony, for sending this in. This is a story I'm taking from the Daily Fail, but it's available on other websites as well as. So basically, a guy has took a picture, yes, a picture, of what he believes to be his late grandfather doing the dishes at a window of a house which is for sale. It says the photo was taken by the real estate agent who was selling the house and forwarded to the family, who were unnerved by the apparent figure at the window, even though the house is believed to be empty. The man who posted the photo to Facebook on Tuesday said the house in Port Victoria, South Australia, was empty when the photos were taken. He says, and I quote in my best Australian accent, "When my pop passed away, we had to sell the house in Port Victoria," he wrote. "The real estate agent took these photos and sent them to my mum straight away. There was no one else at the property at the time." At first glance, the photo of the house with a yellow sold sign reveals nothing out of the ordinary, but a close-up of the image shows a slim figure positioned at the open window who appears to be washing some dishes. The man said his mother sent him the photos and he immediately noticed the photo in the figure in the window. "She sent me the photos while I was on the phone to her, and I said, 'Who's in the effing window?' She freaked out and hung up on me." Interesting. The man believes the figure might be a younger version of his grandfather. "He was a big bloke, but the fella in the figure in the picture looks slim, so maybe it's a younger version of him. The young hoon." He doesn't say the young hoon. That was Alf from Home and Away. Thank you for recognising that impression. Facebook users were quick to comment on the photograph, which now has more than 700 reactions. "It's your pop in the window. I've got a strong feeling it's him saying his last goodbyes, and he's saying he's watching over you," one said. "Ooh, interesting. This really upsets me. Does this mean I'm still going to be doing the dishes after I die?" wrote another, slowly turning Cockney. So there you go. A very interesting photograph, though. Kev's review of the photograph would be this. There's definitely something there. Definitely. I'm not saying that it's definitely a human being, but if it's just, a coincidence, or if it's just a look-alike, what's the word I'm looking for? If it's just pareidolia, yes. If it's just pareidolia, then it's a very good pareidolic image. I suggest you go and search it, guys. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And that's been this week's Week in Wierd.
Week in Wierd.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. It's time for me, yes, me, Kev, lover of his own voice, to read you your ghost stories that you've sent in. Fantastic. And they're all brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget, contact@talkaboutghosts.com. So this first one comes in from the lovely Kim, and she's been in touch before. This one's called Disco Puritans. Sounds like an album name. I might use that. Okay. She says, here's a short ghost story, one from my dad that he experienced whilst working at a Halifax ambulance station. I've mentioned before that he was a no-nonsense Yorkshireman, and for him to come home and tell us this was a big deal. I don't know what was on the land Halifax ambulance station is built on, but it's at the bottom of a hill which rises to Gibbet Street, where there was an actual gibbet for public executions. Legend had it if someone managed to escape their fate and ran without stopping past the church to reach a particular inn, they escaped execution. On the proviso, they never stepped foot in the town again. There used to be a pub called the Running Man on this route. I think the town had quite the reputation once, as there was an old saying between Hell, Hull and Halifax. Good Lord, preserve us. Interesting. Anyway, I digress. It was the 1980s. Dad didn't usually work from Halifax, but had to fill in a few nights because they were short-staffed. They have a big garage for vehicles. As he went to enter it through the connecting door from the station, he couldn't believe his eyes for a moment. He said the ground was up to the knees in smoke or fog. He described it like being on top of the Pops when they had the smoke machine on. And although the lights were off, there was an unearthly glow about the place, and there were people milling about, which looked to him like Quakers or that type of dress. In brackets, although not to be disparaging to Dad, I'm not sure he was a scholar of old fashions, so who knows what period they were from. Nevertheless, I completely believe what he saw was true. He was never a man to make up stories. He was very down to earth, loved a good laugh, and had too many earthly concerns to trouble himself with the supernatural, although he did believe in it. For him to tell us this experience, it must have confounded him. And I know he was glad to get back to working his regular station after that week was up. In my young imagination, I just found the imagery of Puritans in a smoke machine fascinating. Love, Kim. Kim, it may have sounded at the start of that story like I mocked the title Disco Puritans. I want to take that back with aplomb, because it does sound like some Victorian, Edwardian disco. And you know what? I want a ticket. I want to go and I want to say, I bet a charmin. Oh, and they'll go, what the hell was that? And I'll say, I don't know. I don't know whether I was trying to do an accent or just sing Prince Charming. Kind of got confused myself. But thank you, Kim. That's a fantastic little weird story there. Maybe like a time slip, perhaps. What do we think, guys? Let me know. Bloody great story, though. And also, I don't know whether to pronounce gibbet right. It could be gibbet, like pronounced with a J. It's spelled Gibbet, gibbet. And if you don't know what one is, it's kind of like a cage in the shape of a body that they used to hang from crossroads, and they would put like a prisoner's corpse in it to to make sure that other people didn't follow suit down a naughty path. Not too dissimilar, really, to Vlad the Impaler, sticking people on spikes so that people didn't come and attack him. But this was in alleged civilized society. But thank you, Kim. What a wonderful story. Our next story has a great little introductory paragraph. It's from Angela, and it says, please call me Zoe. Fine. She puts in brackets, no kinky reason. I didn't assume. I said, no. I just wanted to be called this when I was a kid, and I had a David Bowie impression. Fair enough. Hi, Kevin and Becca. Hi. I'm posting this because you need more tales of spookiness. It's not petrifying, just a bit shivery. We're all for the shivers here, Zoe. Or should that be Zowie? Anyway, let's get to your tale. When we moved into this house, dog toys kept popping up in the back garden. The previous owners never had dogs. My husband, who's from the Wirral, said that the neighbours had probably thrown toys over the fence. I suggested that a terrier might have difficulty getting over the 7-foot fence for a game of fetch. But anyway, my son was about 3 years old and, at bedtime, always had a cup of water by his bed. He told me that water was very good for you. I asked him how he knew that, and he said that the old lady that watched me read his bedtime stories had told him. I silently screamed, my stomach dropped, my heart stopped, but managed to say, That's right, darling. Night-night. I stood in my bedroom and in a hoarse whisper threatened exorcism and all hell if my boy was ever scared by her. In brackets, I'm a fascinated, terrified skeptic, so this wasn't easy. My husband said that it was our son's imagination and shrugged it off. Whilst getting the house in shape, a photo popped out of the back of a kitchen drawer. A drawer that had been used time and time again, but there it was, a photo of the dining room, with an old lady and a dog in it. Weeks passed, and one day, after working late, my husband met me at the front door. He looked a bit perturbed and said, "He said that the old lady had been back." We stood inches apart, staring at each other, and my husband added in a hoarse whisper, "But this time, she brought the fucking dog with her." We never mentioned the dog toys or the photo to my son. I'm not the kind of mother that likes to scare her children. Weird, eh? I have a few more mild tales to tell if you think they'd be interesting. Be safe, both of you. Zoe, Phil, and Sam. Or really, Angela, Mike, and Dan. Oh my daily Lord. That is petrifying. Did you say the start of that, Zoe? If that's your real name, which we know it's not. Did you say the start? This isn't that scary. I'm sure you said that. Let me just see. It's not petrifying. It's just a bit shivery. Just a bit shivery. Zoe, Angela, you need to know what just a bit shivery is. Just a bit shivery is, oh, did something touch me then? I'm not sure. Or, oh, did I just hear a noise outside? I'm not sure. It's not, hello, mummy. There's a dog in my bed and a granny at the end of the bed you can't see, but she tells me to drink water or I'll die. That is what's known as petrifying. Not shivery. Not shivery. No, no, no. Zo. Oh my, oh, just said Zozo. Oh, Christ. Wow, that is amazing. And yes, you sign off that email by saying, if there's any more that you'd like, then I'll send them in. Well, if they're all like that, then yes, I demand you jump to your typewriter, connect it to the internet somehow. Typewriter, Kevin, honest to God. Jump to wherever you send your electronic mails to and send them to me. Yes, because they're all petrifying, not shivery, petrifying. Well done, Angela, Zoe. That is scary. Come on, guys. It's not just me. That's terrifying, isn't it? It is. It is. Wow. Amazing. Okay, so our next story comes in from Rebecca, and this is called Stair Creeper. Already scared. Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, Kevin Eustace. Oh, she full named me. I might be in trouble here. Hello. I enjoy listening to your podcast and heard your call to action, so decided it was about time I sent in some stories of my own. Why, thank you, Rebecca. Just to let you know, I'm fine with my name being read out. I really should have got to that part first, shouldn't I? Sorry about that. I've had several strange things happen over the years and will mention a few below. They may become a long story. I'm not bothered. I like it. Yes. Apologies. Don't apologize. And I hope you find it interesting anyway. We will. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Rebecca's, I'm allowed to use the name, Rebecca's Stair Creeper. I moved into my previous house in 2010. This was my first house on moving out from my parents. I had all the usual emotions most feel when moving to their own place for the first time. Excitement, nervousness, and that wonderful feeling of independence. I moved in with my then partner, who is now my husband. This was a very old end-of-terrace Victorian house. It was much bigger inside than what it looked outside. It still retained some of the original features, such as the fancy cornicing on the ceiling and the ornate mould that sits on the ceiling around the light. From what I remember from the information pack of the house, it was built in the late 1800s. At first, we had no issues, and I got no impression that the house had anything paranormal. However, once we started making our own changes, that's when things started happening. My husband didn't notice anything and, being a skeptic, refused to acknowledge anything unusual. Once we completed the main bedroom, in brackets our bedroom, most mornings I would be woken to the sound of something trying to turn the bedside light on, but not quite managing it. It would be a relentless click, click, click. The switch was those black ones that are found halfway down the cable. As the cable was so long, I could wrap it around the base of the lamp so I could easily reach it in the dark. It would only stop when I fully woke up, even if I didn't open my eyes. It was as if whatever was doing it sensed that I was awake. Moving on after that, I had several horrendous nightmares in that house that had me waking up in terror. I won't describe them, as they were very disturbing. I have also been woken up by something talking to me at night. I was half awake at the time, and I can still recall shouting quite abruptly, "I don't know what the hell you're saying." Whatever it was stopped talking. But I do remember it being a child's voice and little else. I did feel a bit bad for shouting at it, even if it was supposedly a ghost child. However, things settled after that for a few years, until my first child came along. It was only after her birth that her presence seemed to upset whatever was in my old house. Once she was moved into her own room, which was next to ours, and she would wake every night screaming blue murders. She couldn't tell me much at the time, as she was obviously still a baby. I never understood why she would cry so badly at night like this, until one night I saw it. I heard her crying late one night and got up to see her. I walked into her room and kept the light off in her room, but I left the landing light on. I left the door half open so some light could come in to allow me to see her and pick her up. As I picked her up, from beside me, a grey shadow suddenly darted out of the room and through the open door. In my dozy state, I assumed it was my husband. But that was impossible, as he was still asleep, and how would he have managed to suddenly appear next to me without me seeing him walk into the room to start with? I saw the shadow move with incredible speed and silence through the door and flit past the gap between the hinge side towards our room. Once it had gone, my daughter calmed down and went straight back to sleep. And that's when I knew for sure there was something in the house. My mother had also seen a small child skip past the glass door of the living room. Some mornings she would come over to my house early to allow me to go to work at an earlier time. She would then watch TV and wait for my daughter to wake up, which was usually only an hour or so after I had left. When she saw the pale, child-sized figure skip past the door, she assumed it was my daughter and thought she'd somehow climbed out of her cot. When she went upstairs, my child was still very much sleeping in her cot. Also, my child is not much of a climber and has never been able to climb out of the cot on her own volition. One day, when my daughter was laying on the living room floor playing with her playmat, I left her with my husband and went upstairs to retrieve my tablet that had been charging. While I sat on the side of the bed with the door to the left of me, I heard what sounded like someone creeping slowly up the stairs. I could hear the gentle footfalls on each step, followed by the wooden banisters creaking loudly, as if someone was tiptoeing up them and then leaning upwards against the banister to see where I was upstairs. I assumed it was my husband and leant forward, expecting to see his face peering through the spindles, like he'd come upstairs to call for me or something, and didn't want to wake our daughter if she'd been asleep or on her playmat. No one was there. I got up and went to the landing. I looked over the banisters and there's no sight of him. So I called his name, but I could see the living room door was closed and heard the faint sound of the TV within, and that left me baffled. Moving on from those incidents, once my daughter could talk, that's when I learnt about what she was seeing. One day, whilst giving her a bath, she pointed up at the window and said, "Look, it's Oscar." I looked up but couldn't see anything. I assumed she was having a little imaginative moment and played along. "Well, why is he by the window? What's he doing?" She didn't answer, but instead she said, "It's Oscar. He's got no hands." That did give me the creeps. There was another incident where I was alone in the house with her during the day. I closed the baby gate at the top of the stairs and went into the bathroom to replace the used towels with freshly washed ones. My daughter was in her bedroom playing. That's when I heard her door slam. Wondering why she closed her door, I opened the baby gate and then her door and asked her why she'd shut the door. She answered very casually with, "I didn't want the little boy to come in." It wasn't until we moved house 3 years ago that she told me about the monsters in the house. She had no concept of ghosts, so referred to them by that name. She told me randomly one day that they would come into her room at night and shout at her, telling her that this was their house, not hers, and she should get out. That did freak me out. I never felt much in the way of hostility in that house, aside from the occasional nightmare. It seemed whatever was there had taken a great offence to my daughter. I think whatever it was cowardly and saw my daughter as an easy target. Since moving into our current house, some things have happened, though my daughter doesn't experience anything hostile. On the second night of moving in, something blew in my face whilst I was sleeping. Again, I thought it was my husband and turned to tell him off for waking me in such a childish way. However, he was faced away from me and in a deep sleep. Whatever it was, the breath was icy cold. I have also been tapped awake and assumed it was my daughter who'd come into our room. It wasn't my husband, as he was sleeping downstairs due to being on call for his job and didn't want to disturb me should his phone ring. I had the bedroom to myself. When I opened my eyes, there was nothing in the darkness. I don't know what I would have done if I'd seen something standing there that wasn't my daughter. I think I would have jumped so high I'd have gone straight through the ceiling. I've also experienced things in my grandparents' house as well as my parents', but we'll leave it here for now. I feel I've written plenty. I may return and tell you about these incidents at a later date. Look after yourselves and stay safe. Oh, effing Jesus H. Christ. Number 1, Bethlehem Road, Jerusalem. Hi Jesus, this is Kevin. Can you please, exclamation mark, come to Rebecca's house and get rid of whatever the frig was in the house, because oh my God, that's terrifying. Oh my Lord. Genuinely, I'm alone recording this. Firstly, let me congratulate you. Congrats, I sound drunk. Let me congratulate you on a very well written story. That was a fantastically written story. But oh my Lord, that is petrifying. I was with you every step of the way there. And I have the underpants to prove it. No, seriously, that was terrifying. And please, you've said at the end, again, like most people do, they tease more. So don't just tease us, please, Rebecca. Send more. Yeah, send all you can, because I like to be scared out of my living wits. I like to think, I'm not going to sleep tonight. And I like, therefore, not to sleep that night. But do send those stories in, because that was amazing. Terrifying, but amazing. Okay, wow. I think it's time for a midpoint, because I need to go and have a coffee. Yes, I do. And to put some lights on, the telly on in each room, generally pretend that story didn't just happen. So I'll see you on the other side, guys. It's German midpoint time. Poof, poof, ja, ja, poof, poof, 9, 9, poof, poof, 7, 7. What was that? That was yes. No, 7, 7. Yes, the new German techno hit coming to stores near you. Anyway, I hope that you had a fantastic Christmas. It is a midpoint. I hope that you got everything that you want. In fact, no, tell a lie. I hope that you got everything that you need. Yes, let's get all Buddhist about this. Yes, come on. It's been a horrible year, and all round it has. And that's why we listen to podcasts, to escape that sort of jizzle. Wow. See, this is the problem, you see, when your podcasting style is a stream of consciousness, which is what I try and do. It turns out you say words like jizzle. Yeah. And no one needs to say those words on a podcast, do they, Kevin? No. Should I stop it and redo, or should I carry on? No, let's leave that in. Yes, let's leave that in so people understand the problems of streams of consciousness. Anyway, I've just seen some podcasting news which has really made me go, and that is, it's just been announced on Instagram that Ian from the Ghost Story guys is stepping down. Good luck, Ian. I think he's just going to do whatever else he does in his life. I know he does some haunted ghost tours and the likes. I think he's moved recently as well. Not sure. But anyway, whatever it is you're going to do, Ian, I know that you'll be brilliant at it. So good luck, my friend. Godspeed, as they say. And Brennan, that leaves Brennan at the helm of the Ghost Story guys. And genuinely and sincerely, he couldn't be in better hands. He's a podcasting pro. He produces other podcasts. The man's just, I don't know where he gets his time from or his level of ability when it comes to podcasting. But if you had to put your money on one man being able to not only maintain, exceed the level of a success of his show, it's Brennan. So, Ghost Story guys will be going nowhere, I think. And if anything, they're going to go from strength to strength. That sounds like it's a good thing. I'm not saying they're going to go from strength to strength because Ian's gone. No. I just mean everyone will make the best of the situation is what I mean. So please, no one tell Ian that Kev's made up that he's going, because he's not. He's very sad. But you know what I mean. Brennan will make it work. He's a good guy. So good luck to those guys. I'm sure you'll join me in wishing them the best of luck. So what other news is there? Well, nothing really. Our next show will be in 2021. That's exciting. A new year. A whole new year. I'm not doing that again. But a whole new year, yes. We're still going to carry on a bit of nonsense from the COVID, aren't we, into 2021? But that's okay, because come this time next year, when I'm saying, it's nearly 2022, then hopefully, we'll all be back out annoying each other face to face as opposed to over Zoom. So next week, just to say, not only will it be a new year, yes, it will be a new year, as we all know, because we've all got calendars. It'll be similar to the way this show is. So I think we'll hopefully be able to squeeze a call in with someone between now and New Year. But I'm sitting on a load of stories. That doesn't mean don't send me your stories. I want them. I need them for the show. It's the lifeblood of this show. Your stories are, guys. So I've got stories here from the likes of the wonderful Michaela, Scott. You've all sent stories in. I am sitting on them, and they're going to be read out next week. Okay, guys? Thank you very much for sending them in. So, yeah, if you've got a story you think, oh, no, you know what? I mean, I can't believe the people who've sent in today's stories even are like, this isn't that scary, but Satan kicked me up the arse. It's like, that's terrifying. They all started with, this isn't that scary, but. It's like, are you joking? Bloody hell, you must be brave. Braver than me. Anyway, so do send them in. So, after this break that we're just doing right now, or the midpoint as we've come to know and love it, we're going to be speaking to the fantastic Nell. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so we are now having another amazing caller, and we've got a YouTube person, an influencer, I don't know what you call him, a presenter, and this is a person by the name of Nell, who hosts a show on YouTube called Nell's Crypt, which I can only imagine by the name is a paranormally sort of spooky sort of show. Is that right, Nell?
Yeah. So we cover like things like paranormal, true crime, mythology, kind of anything like in that kind of bracket, really. It's still a very new channel, so there's not much content on it right now, but we do have like big plans for it. We can just go on. We did a paranormal like story time kind of video, and this coming will be about the Axeman of New Orleans.
Oh dear.
Yes. Which is an interesting story in and of itself. And then after that, we've got quite a few different stories and ideas lined up for the new year. So all very exciting.
Fantastic. So we've obviously, just before we started recording, you let me know that you've been affected by this naughty C word virus, haven't you, in terms of your current habitat?
Yes, this week I will be. Yeah. We've had a couple of people where I currently work have positive tests come back. So
are you self-isolating at the moment?
Yeah, so case of taking the necessary precautions.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I know that through our correspondence, you said that You had stories regarding places that you've previously worked.
I do indeed, yes.
Okay, so now the electronic floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I've worked in childcare for quite a few years now. And one of my very first workplaces was a nursery setting. And it was attached to a college as well. And apparently many years ago, it and the college used to be a workhouse.
Okay, just to jump in, just for our American guys and our other people, in terms of a warehouse, they may not know what that is, but that's obviously, as you'll probably tell us, it was a place for the poor to work back in the Victorian days, etc., wasn't it? So that, or childless, like orphans and stuff would work there, so they could get a bed for the night and meals and stuff.
That's right. Yeah. So basically, yeah, people down on their luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically people who had nowhere else to go, really. I worked there for about 5 years, and it kind of had one of those atmospheres where you walked in and you just knew something was slightly off. Every so often I get like the corner, like a shadows out of the corner of my eye kind of thing.
Yeah, corner of the eye phenomenon.
Yeah. Obviously, being so new there, I kind of didn't want to say anything in case people kind of looked at me like, "What, you weirdo?"
Yeah.
It was at the end of my first week there, and we'd just finished giving the kids their tea, and we had them all down one end of the room while we'd kind of cordoned off the meal bit area while we tidied it up. And I was stood at the sink washing up, and all of a sudden I felt like a tugging on my trouser leg. So I turned around thinking it was one of them, like, we're needing the bathroom or something like that. And turned around and there was no one there at all. All the kids were still on the other side of the room with my colleagues, and yeah, there was no one there, but I felt the tugging on the trouser leg clear as day. Monday following that, because we worked like all different shifts. So I was on the early shift.
Yeah.
And got in for about, 7:30, 7:45 kind of thing, and found one of my other workmates on the same shift as me, like sat on the steps of the building opposite. And so I walk over thinking, well, what are you over there for, kind of thing. The gates are open, and she said, oh no, I'm so glad you're here. I hate going in by myself because the place is haunted.
Ooh.
And I thought, yes, I'm not mad, thank God. But yeah.
And what had that person seen that had forced her out onto the steps, so to speak?
I'm not sure. Like, she wouldn't go into detail at all. She just said, I'm not going in there by myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I had another workmate who was very spiritually aware and spiritually open. And when she was on the early shift, she was a morning person, so she'd get in way before anyone else on the early shift. And whenever she'd go in, she'd always say, "Morning, everyone," just to kind of acknowledge.
Oh, she'd say that to an empty room, just she's talking to ghosts or something.
Just "Morning, everyone," and then she'd just carry on doing what she was doing. I always remember her telling me one morning, for whatever reason, she'd forgotten to do this. I don't know whether, maybe she'd been running late or had things on her mind or whatever. But so she'd gone in, she dropped her stuff off in the staff room, made herself a cup of tea, and then started setting up the room that she was based in. And there was a radio that she had playing in the background as she set up. And all of a sudden she realized that the volume on the radio kept getting louder and quieter and louder and quieter kind of thing, and said, yes, okay, good morning to you too, that it just kind of stopped and then stayed at like a consistent volume.
A consistent level of volume.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So it was almost like they were saying, well, hi, morning. Where's our welcome kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then obviously then once like acknowledged them, they were happy. So
yeah. And so that place was a workhouse and it's now a nursery, is it? Or sort of something similar, is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
The majority of the building is the college. And like there's like a small part of it that's the nursery. But yeah, we would quite often have the children like react to something.
Ooh.
There was one point where the preschool or the kindergarten children, for our American listeners, were playing out in the garden, and the way the outdoor bit was set up was so you'd have their play area, but you'd also have a path that went round it to get to the front door to go in.
Yeah.
And above the front door, it was like pretty much like attached to the college, but the windows that were above the door, there'd been like blacked out because the rooms there had been like cordoned off or like bricked off or whatever, so they weren't in use. So one afternoon they were all outside, and one of the little boys came up to one of my co-workers and said something along the lines of, "Miss, are we all out now? Like, are we all playing outside?" And she said, "Yes, we're all outside." And then he then pointed to one of the windows above the door and said, "Well, what about that little boy up there then?"
Oh, no way. I would not like that in the slightest. Although it sounds fascinating and amazing.
Oh, yeah. One particular experience that I had was it was just after lunchtime one day, and I was taking the lunch trolley back down to the kitchen, and I turned to the corner to go down the corridor, and just as I turned to the corner, I saw someone go into the kitchen just ahead of me. Like I saw like the back of them go in and the door close. So I didn't think anything of it. I carried on wheeling down the trolley and got into the kitchen, and there was absolutely nobody there at all. And the only other way out was been through a door that led out into the college, but that door was locked, and it had like a stack of chairs pushed up against it, so there was nowhere anyone would have been able to get out at all.
Amazing. And so, how old would you say this building is? I know we've said it was previously a workhouse, etc., but if you had to have a stab in the dark, how old would you say the building is that you're in?
Oh, probably maybe 150 years old, give or take.
Wow. So no spring chicken then. That's quite old, isn't it, really?
It's a very, very old place. And my workmate, who I mentioned previously, who'd get in at silly o'clock in the morning before anyone else, she'd quite often like hear things when she got in, like children singing and stuff, when obviously there wasn't anyone else in yet.
That's petrifying. I mean, it's just something, I don't know what it is, but there's something a little bit extra scary when it's kids. When it's an adult ghost or it's a shadow man in a hat and all that, I can cope with all that. But when it's a little child just going like, "Hello, let's have a sing song," I'm like, no. So fair play you. Very brave of you to work in such an environment. I certainly wouldn't, unless you had a priest with me or a proton pack or something similar. So how about outside of the school environment? Have you experienced anything of a paranormal ilk in your own personal life?
I have, yes. So I've grown up in a house that was pretty old, and we'd have quite a bit happen there over the years that I lived there. I've actually done a a video on the YouTube channel about the about one of the occasions where I woke up and found something watching me.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen that. Was it like a Watch Me Sleep or something?
Yeah,
Yeah, really good video, really well put together.
thank you. But yeah, that one definitely gave me the chills. And not particularly something that I want to experience again, really.
No, no. Just talk us through what happened with that one, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I must have been about, I think, 14, 15. And at the time, I had one of those like high up cabin beds.
Yeah, I remember cabin beds. Yeah, they were all the rage back in the day, weren't they? Cabin beds.
Everyone who was anyone had one of those. But yeah, no. So one night I woke up and I rolled over and looked down and saw someone standing in the middle of my room, kind of looking up at me. I just kind of put it down to it being my mum. And then I realised that whoever it was stood there was a lot taller than my mum. So I kind of thought that it was my dad, and then realised actually no, whoever this is wearing a dress, and my dad isn't exactly well known for wearing dresses, so I kind of then I reached around to switch on my like little reading light that I had at the time, and the minute the light went on, I hadn't taken my eyes off this person for a second, and the minute the light went back on again, they disappeared.
And see, what's interesting about that, with you having a cabin bed, because I'm sure everyone knows what one is, but they might not, because they may have fell out of favour. But it's kind of like just the top bunk part of a pair of bunk beds, isn't it? Like with the underneath, it can be whatever, like a desk or whatever else. But there's just one bed, but it's at the height of a top bunk, so it makes sense. Somebody would be. It's interesting when you say looking up at you. It's normally someone hovering over you, isn't it? In these sorts of circumstances.
From the moment I woke up, it just felt like I needed to roll over and look down. I literally kept the light on for the rest of the night because there was no way I was turning that light back off.
Don't blame you. It's petrifying. So then in that house in particular, so after you've seen this spirit looking up at you in the bunk bed or the cabin bed, did anyone else in the house experience anything from this person, or do you think it was just kind of attached to you?
I'm not sure really. My dad and brother were or are very skeptical about that kind of thing. My dad less so these days. He seems to have mellowed out a little bit and kind of is more open to the idea of like spirits and the paranormal and all that. We had a study where we had the chair like to the back of the door. And she'd say that quite often some evenings she'd be sat working in the office, and she'd get the feeling that someone was standing behind her, and she'd turn around and obviously there'd be no one there. I'd also have quite a few friends sometimes like comment, "Oh, who's that lady out in the garden?" And obviously there'd be no one there. So,
and what did they manage to describe the woman in the garden, or
she was like all in black, like a black almost like mass, but in a like a feminine shape kind of thing, like
so it was identifiable as a woman, but it was kind of not too descript, if you like.
Yeah
Interesting.
And my dad's wife, my stepmom, she's also seen a what seems to be like an Edwardian man from time to time when they lived there, and quite often a couple of her children would notice him too. One of the first times that she told me about him was one evening she and her daughter were getting ready to go out, and they were stood in the bedroom, and my dad was still out at work at that point, so it was just two of them in the house. And the daughter kind of glanced out into the hallway, and someone said, "Mum, he stood out in the hallway," and he was apparently that clear that
Wow. So
like,
they could actually see him in the hallway.
Yeah, and apparently he had like the top hat and the like the dress coat and everything. And
wow, and like a cane and the full regalia.
Yeah, and apparently sometimes my stepmom would get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and he'd just be stood in the hallway looking at her, which is really off-putting.
Don't need that in the slightest, do you, really? Let's be honest.
No, but I find that actually really interesting, because when I lived there, this was before my stepmom moved in. So quite often, we used to, when we first moved in there, we'd have the bathroom downstairs. And then a few years after we moved in, my parents had built an upstairs bathroom as well. But if you get up in the middle of the night and you'd go downstairs to use the bathroom or to get a drink or whatever, going back up those stairs, it really felt like someone was chasing you up the stairs and across the hall. And it would be a point where you'd be stood at the bottom of the stairs and go, right, okay, 1, 2, 3, go, and you just have to leg it up the stairs and across the hall, and you wouldn't feel you got into your bedroom and closed the door.
I understand that feeling. Yeah, it's quite a common thing. We've talked about that on another show about it seems like everyone in the world at some point or another has experienced the whole I'm getting chased up the stairs. But I think although everyone's experienced it at some point in their lives, there are times when it feels a little bit more real than others.
Oh yeah.
And I can only assume that would be spirits then, in my opinion anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it would be okay like during the day and in the evening, but it would always be like really late at night, like usually during the hours when you'd kind of usually have to get up to use the bathroom or whatever.
Yeah
And it was just that really unsettling feeling of there's someone or something behind me. I need to keep moving. I'm not even going to look behind me. I'm just going to keep going.
That's amazing. Yeah, it does sound absolutely terrifying, to be fair. It used to happen quite a lot in my nan's with me, because she had very a terraced council house, and the stairs up to the toilet was very narrow and very dark. And it was very narrow as a house. And I used to actually, when I'd go up those stairs, that was the main time when I'd be convinced, going up and coming down actually, that there was somebody either chasing. In fact, I tell a lie, it was never really going up, it was always coming down.
Oh,
you always felt there was someone watching you from the top of the stairs.
Oh, that's interesting, because for us, we never had an issue going downstairs. So it was always going up the stairs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, there was definitely a weird sense in my nan's house. I don't know what it was. Only on the upstairs. The downstairs was fine, not scary at all. I think it was the lack of windows on the stairs which might have done it. So if the bathroom door was shut, it was pitch black. That's just how it was. So it could have been that, just a lack of natural light.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that it only seems to happen like on the upstairs, because where I'm working at the moment, we find that that's very much the case there.
Okay.
Yeah, so lately things have kind of started escalating in that sense. So where I work now, it used to be a number of things back in the day. I think it used to be like a children's home, kind of like a halfway house kind of place, or things like that. Very often a case of nothing ever happens downstairs, but upstairs we've had quite a few things happen. We have like automatic lighting, or a movement activated. Sometimes you'll be sat up there and the lights will either turn on by themselves, or the doors will open or sound like they open by themselves, and these are like real heavy, almost like fire doors that you have to give them like some proper welly to open them. And you'll be like in one of the rooms and you'll hear the door go, and you'll look out and there'll be no one there. And one morning my room lead went in on the early shift, and the fairy lights that we have up, they're battery operated, and you have to press to turn them on and off and have them at different speeds and what have you. And they automatically switch off after like 7 hours by themselves. So she went and they were on.
Wow, that is terrifying.
Yeah. So bearing in mind there'd been no one in the building for like, almost 12 hours kind of thing. So even if
it sounds like the little kids are playing some sort of pranks as they go about their spooky lives.
Yeah. Thinking about, really, to be honest. And back in the summer we did actually have a pretty weird thing happen with one of the kids. That we were looking after, because we so they were all sat having their lunch, and all of a sudden we noticed one of them kind of like smiling and like waving at someone or something like over near a corner. And so we say, "Oh, who are you waving at?" And he turns around and says to us, "People." And we kind of looked at each other like, okay, how many people are there? And he was a toddler, so he must have been like 2 or 3 at the time. And he goes, 1, 2, 3 people. And then a second later he goes, "Oh, people gone. Bye people."
Oh, no way. That's horrible.
Oh no, you did not just do that.
You can do without that. That is amazing. Oh, yeah. Okay, Nell, we're getting to our time, sadly, but thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with those stories. We'll have to get you back on, because it sounds like you're going to be experiencing a lot more, given that you literally work in a workhouse, and we know the absolute terrors that can go on within there.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to give a final shout out for your YouTube channel then, Nell, tell people where they can find it and what they can expect.
Okay, so the channel is called Nell's Crypt, NELLSCRYPT, and it's a channel all to do with the paranormal, true crime, mythology, anything based around that kind of thing. I'm going to be uploading to it every weekend, so yeah, if that's the kind of thing you're into, I mean, you're listening to the podcast, so clearly,
well, yeah, it should be a good target audience, you'd think, wouldn't you? So that's brilliant. So do go and check out Nell's videos over on YouTube, and go and subscribe to her channel, I think they say in the business. And Nell, I think I'll just thank you for coming on to talk to me about ghosts.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been lovely.
Yeah, it has been indeed. We'll get you back on, Nell, as well in a few months and see if anything else has gone on.
That'd be great. Thank you.